to move to that side of the building, so we're going to say prayer first. Thank you, Mark.
All right, please bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, we come before you this evening thanking you for this blessing of the day that you gave us and the blessings that you give us every day. Lord, we ask that you watch over our meeting this evening and guide our hearts and minds to make decisions that are in the best interests of our water system and its members. Lord, we ask that you watch over and protect our military men and women, all of our first responders, all those that work to keep us free and safe every day. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Let's sing the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. We've got a lot on the agenda, so we're going to get moving here. I just have to announce audio and video recorders are in use. And if anybody wants to address the board, please fill out the member form sign-up sheet. It's out in the lobby. Proxy and absentee voting is available now, and it ends on December 20th. So that's coming up. It ends on December 20th at 4 p.m. And the annual meeting is January 21st, and voting is open from 7:30 that day to 7 p.m. that day on the 21st of January. All right. We go into the first business is the approval of minutes and transcripts. We've got the November 19th, 2024 closed executive session minutes and the November 19th regular meeting minutes and transcripts.
Make a motion to approve both as presented.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes and transcripts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Approval of memberships. November new memberships were 204. Canceled memberships were 195, and we had 0 transfers. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, we move on to unfinished business. And this is here.
Pension plan?
I don't see it in my book.
No, I don't see a tab in there.
There's no
There's no supporting documentation.
Oh, this is Jeff Krigler. You want to go explain?
Yeah, so this was just an update on pension committee, which includes myself, 2 staff members, and Mike and Don. We met again on December 12th. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss whether an additional contribution should be made this year to the pension plan. The committee felt that they should, recommended an amount of $200,000 as an additional contribution for this year to the pension plan. So I know the whole board hadn't had a chance to discuss that, but that's the recommendation from the committee. So I don't know if the committee members want to add to that or open that up for discussion.
So the only thing I'll add is, correct me if I'm wrong, so 125 was what is going to be recommended next year at some time point, but right now we're paid up through next year. We're under budget for what we had planned for this year. It's been good, but I personally am concerned with how the business is going to do this next year with what we're thinking about doing tonight. So I recommended to go ahead and put $200K in there that we have now. It's still below the budget and get us well past next year where you don't have to worry about it.
I'll make a motion. We make an additional pension contribution of $200,000.
I'll second it.
Just to clarify, this is in addition to the required minimum contribution,
Correct.
which we already made earlier this year.
It was 206, so it would bring our total to 406,000.
And what did we budget it for?
500.
500.
Yeah.
So we're
So
still
we knew
under
we would
budget
be
for
paying
that.
a decent amount. Yeah. Correct.
And this keeps us in line through 2025.
Absolutely.
So in next year, we won't have to, we obviously
We
could,
could.
but we
You could choose
don't
not
have
to,
to.
but-
Okay. So that gives us some flexibility. Any more discussion from the board?
No.
All right, I see Ms. Reynolds up there. How you doing?
Yes, good evening, Carmen Reynolds, Navarre. Just for clarification, do we have standard annual payouts? Because I'm a little confused. I know you all approved, wasn't it a $1.3 million payout earlier this year? So I'm trying to figure out is what the annual payout is every year so that I can get it straight.
Well, the payout is determined by how many people decide to retire and take the payment. Correct, Jeff? Right? So we don't know. We know what we have outstanding.
I don't know where the 1.3 came from.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
I know we had an agenda item for it a number of months ago. So tonight, it's like 500,000 per year, is that correct? Or 400,000 or 150
We
or...
budgeted for 500,000 and we met the requirements this year and into next year. And so we decided to put some extra in there so it gives us some leeway for next year on what we can do.
So
It's
we're at
basically just a savings
700.
account.
700,000, right?
No.
No.
This year was the 125,
206 plus this 200.
and then
406.
206, okay. So many numbers. But we budgeted for 5. We met the requirement and decided to put, since we had budgeted, let's put some in there so it'll give us some leeway for next year.
Okay.
So we're still under budget. for
Yeah,
that
we're
line.
way under budget, and we're saving. That's why I liked it so much. We were saving, so
Okay.
let's save it.
All right.
We had it, let's
Thank
save
you
it.
for that clarification.
And some of our projected future pension obligations are projected to increase, and this is a way for us to kind of get ahead of those,
Yeah.
build that fund up so that, we're not going to get hit in 2 or 3 years with a bigger number.
We were worried about all the payouts, and so Jeff looked into it and said, no, we were safe. The people make sure that we're covered, and then we as a group just said, let's save some more, and that's what we're doing with the plan.
Thank you, Director Matthews.
All right, thank you, Ms. Reynolds. We don't have any further discussion on the board. I've got a motion and a second to make an additional contribution to the pension for $200,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. All right, new business, here we go, Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, so just one item on the CO update. I don't have any great construction picks to share tonight, but I did want to give just a quick update on the election. To date, we received right around 140 absentee ballots, slightly less than 10 proxy requests. So everything's going well, and we have a deadline of this Friday for that process.
Did I, sorry for interrupting, did I hear 10 proxies is all that's been?
Less than 10 is what my understanding of the count so far. So, yep, so it's going well, and we're hopeful for another smooth election in January. That's all I have for CEO update.
All right, we'll move on to the Director's update, Finance Committee. Mr. Lowe?
We went through the month, and currently we're about 83% through the year, and we are at 90% at revenue, which is 7% ahead, and we are 75% at expenses, which is 8% below.
Okay, awesome. Capital improvements, Mr. Lyncher.
Moving right on along with our capital improvements projects. Obviously, the tank's about done, or it is done at this point. The shiny new paint job, so we'll have to get a final bill for that one here soon, and I think we've got a bid to award tonight for some more work to get started.
All right. Mr. Campbell is not here, so we're going to skip on down to pension, which we just already discussed. regional reuse project is still on track. Club at Hidden Creek Management Board, Mr. Linnell.
Yes, sort of a mixed message, but essentially very good news. Club lost 12K month of November. However, we're in the low season. A lot of golfers are fair weather golfers, and we don't have all days of fair weather. So numbers are low. Budget had them losing 88K this month, but we've been paying real estate taxes early, accruing them month by month. So in reality, our target was losing 48,000. So we only lost 12. So the club did much better than expected. Unfortunately, it's just not in the black, but much better than expected.
All right, Fairpoint Regional Utility System, Mr. Crickler.
Yeah, I have some what we believe is good news to report. Fairpoint Board had a concern about the location of the City of Milton's proposed spray field within the Wellfield Protection Area. We were working on that issue, and we learned from the last City of Milton Town Council meeting where they elected their new members, that they are planning to relocate that portion of the spray field outside the WPA. So that was they haven't, I don't think they've closed on the property. We don't have that in hand yet, but that's my understanding of what they said they were going to do. So that was good news. I know that's near and dear to Carmen's been working on. Appreciate your assistance with that. So good news there. No Fairpoint meeting this month. We approved the budget last month, and we'll start back up with board meetings in January for Fairpoint.
All right, let's move on to municipal engineering, Mr. Phillips.
I don't know that I have anything specific to report. Everything keeps going well for us. We're trying to procure 2 trucks. Since the board won't do business in a board meeting again until February, you guys may see something on that over the holidays or shortly thereafter, depending on what type of deal someone's willing to offer us. But that's really all we've got going on right at the moment, unless somebody has questions.
All right, let's skip on down to number 3, finance, review of October 2024 finances.
Yes, so we are caught up on presenting of our statements, which is rectified that last month, so we're happy about that, and we'll let Barbara speak to the October financials.
All right, so this is for October. Total revenue, $2,208,789, and with total expenses, $1,126,868. With a total net operating income of $1,081,920. Pretty good month. We did receive $519,000 in grant revenue, so that was good. Water and wastewater impact fees were down from previous year. Water and wastewater sales were up from previous year. And Rob spoke on the percentages of overall budget.
What was the grant revenue for?
That's the grant revenue on our grant.
England project.
England project.
Okay,
England
all right.
project. The 40% on that.
Got you, okay.
Any questions for Barbara? All right, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Staples. All right. Moving on to item 4, award of bid.
We need to approve the,
approve it. Yeah, let's do that.
There's one thing on the financials I'd like to bring to the board's attention. It appears that we're now putting the equity earnings from the club at Hidden Creek, Messy, and Fairpoint onto our financial statements for the operations hauling of our water system, which means that comparing the 2 years together, our financial statements are overstated by about $1.3 million, comparing them to the prior year. We put Messy and the club at Hidden Creek into Hollywood Bar water systems for the audit purposes at the end of the year, but I think it's kind of misleading for us as a board to be mixing these together and trying to look at a bottom line. I mean, it obviously makes a $1.3 million difference in our bottom line for the year that nobody's really known about. And I think we need to direct staff to do that. I also think we need to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future. We need to make sure that the board or that the staff knows that no individual board member can change something unilaterally without the approval of the entire board. I want to say that at an open meeting tonight, so all of our staff understands that. Maybe we won't have this problem in the future. So, anyways, I think it needs to be removed.
Are you seeing 1.3 million in here? Maybe you're looking at different.
See this right here?
Yeah.
The club Hidden Creek?
Yeah.
270.
270, 427, 466.
Yeah. So
I think it's like 9 and 270.
Yeah.
1.2, I'll buy 1.2, that's all. If that's what you're looking at, then my number's good. Okay.
And that's on our balance sheet, or?
It's our profit and loss statement.
Profit and loss. Yeah, we talked about this in our finance meeting. I think we have a plan, assuming we get board direction to rectify. I don't know.
Darrell, are you ready to make a motion?
Well,
I got a question.
we've got a motion on the table to approve the financial statements. I'd make a motion that, moving forward, that we remove these from the financial statements. I'm not going to say that we need to restate the financial statements for the entire year, but maybe on January 1, we can start doing it right again.
Okay. So let's approve October 2024, and then let's make that motion.
Okay.
So, do I have a motion to approve the October 2024 financial statements?
So moved.
I have a second motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Then I'd make a motion that we remove the equity earnings from the club at Hidden Creek, Messy, and the Fairpoint joint venture from our profit and loss statement.
This is basically stating that earnings twice, right?
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Wait. All second for discussion, but what did you just say? Variance twice?
What Darrell's saying is that we're stating that income twice, once on
Well,
Messy,
not
no?
necessarily twice, but you are indirectly. But the main thing is whenever you want to look at the operational, Holly Navarre Water Systems operations, whenever we look at that, we want to see Holly Navarre Water Systems operations, not the operations of the rest of our corporations. That's the consistency. I mean, it's been that way forever. If you pull up our financial statements online, our members pull up our financial statements, and they'll see the way it's been done in the past. And for this year, they're going to see that we have an additional $1.3 million in revenue that they probably can't explain because it doesn't exist.
Right. I understand now.
How do we get here, Barbara?
We started recording the earnings to equity every quarter,
Okay.
starting in '24, where before we just recorded the earnings to equity at the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the audit.
Okay.
And the concept was attempting to get the chart to eliminate that big spike at the end of the year.
At the end.
It was really all about one graph.
Oh.
Yeah.
One in the front.
Which it still didn't really eliminate the spike because you still have adjusting entries at the end of the year.
Okay.
So did I hear that now we're doing it quarterly instead of just at the end of the year?
Correct.
So
If we don't
to me, if we do it at the end of the year, then why is it not valid quarterly? That's different from do we want to do it or not, but so is that
you
real
can do it.
earnings or not?
From an enterprise standpoint, yes. But if you're looking at Holly Navarre Water System's profit and loss statement to make a determination about the operations of Holly Navarre Water System, but you start adding the income from these other corporations that really don't have anything to do with the operations of Holly Navarre Water System in there, it makes them kind of hard to read.
So everything's good throughout the year, but then we screwed up in December because we added them?
We did,
Help me
have we
understand how it's
ever
different.
added it to these financials? We put it in the audited financial statements every
They're in the
year.
audited financials.
They're in the audited financials,
So even
not
at the end of the
these.
year, it's never in these.
That's
It
correct.
is in the profit and loss statement at the end of the year in the audited profit and loss statement.
Only the audited one or both, you said?
They're the same. Right
Okay.
now, they're unaudited, but when they're presented to you after the audit, those are audited. Same reports,
Right.
just audited.
So it's in both.
It's never been in this blue book other than the audited financial statements, correct? Okay.
Still the same report.
Understand?
So this is just paper earnings, it's not
It's not true revenue.
money that's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, coming in.
coming in, yeah.
And Fairpoint is not money that's ever coming in.
Well, not anytime soon.
I agree with Daryl, though. Anything to make this less complicated, right? Yeah.
That's what I like.
Yeah, and one of the things we'd like to do as part of this discussion is when we have the board training after the election, is to talk with the new board about what information do you want to see, how do you want to see it? Because some of this stuff we present in front of the statements was a preference thing, and if this new board doesn't want to see it that way, let's have that conversation. So we're prepared to do that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
So earlier we mentioned it's all about one chart. Is this a net income chart that I see in the front of the financials? Is that the chart?
That's it.
So is next month, are those equities going to be reflected in this chart or not?
They will for '24. From
But not
It'll be the
not
chart
in
the
an
whole
audited chart. We're just going to, again,
in '25, based on the board's motion tonight, in '25, the earnings equity would not be in this chart until the audit after December of '25.
So it'd be like the rest.
Yes.
okay, I think I understand.
It makes sense to me, since this isn't something that affects kind of our water system's operations, you know, our income and our expenses, that's what we want to see on a monthly basis is, you know, the income and expenses for all of our water system. We see separately Hidden Creek and Messy, and we don't really see Fairpoint, but.
So we never see an enterprise number.
Right.
Until the audit.
Not until the audit.
Okay.
I'm in favor of it.
All right, I have a motion, and Daryl, if you could say what the motion was again.
To remove the equity earnings on the Club at Hidden Creek, Messy, and joint venture FRUS from our Holly Navarre Water System operating financial statement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Right.
He was waiting for another one. Got it.
All right, now we can move on to award a bid, elevated tank master booster pump station. Mr. Crickler.
Yes, so at our elevated tank site there, near the Elevate property, there's also a booster pump station planned for that site, which is a separate project. That's part of the approved projects that are funded through our Ameris loan. So we opened bids for that project on the 12th, and we received one bid from Baird General Contractors. You know, we certainly like to receive more than one bid on our construction projects, certainly our large projects, but this bid was pretty close to to our latest budget estimate. I think we had it estimated around 4.2, so this came in at 4.775. So we did a couple of things. We analyzed the bid. We also called the references given in the proposal. All the references checked out. So once again, while we don't like just having one bid, you know, there's a time risk to trying to redo this, and if we redo it, who else is going to be interested? So it just, you know, there's risks in trying to rebid this thing. So we think based on the kind of the feedback we got from the references, reputation, and the amount of the bid, that we should proceed with this and award it to Bear. We reviewed the bid. Only thing I'd want to point out, you know, we did have some line items here. The mobilization item was a little on the high side from what we typically see. We don't think it's a major problem, but you know, I do want to mention that we have some representatives from Bear here tonight. Keith Rogers is here, and if there's any questions about the project in general, he indicated to me he's certainly willing to answer them. But short of that, we think we should proceed with this and award the bid to Bear.
I make a motion, we approve the proposal of Bear General Contractors LLC in the amount of $4,775,000. Is that correct?
And 800.
Yep.
And $800.
Second.
Any idea why we only got one bid? Are there other
Well,
utility contractors?
so we were Corey was corresponding with at least three. I don't know how serious the third one was. There was a second bidder that just decided not to bid close to the bid date. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the project. It could just mean he was balancing his workload and just, we don't know. But we did have interest in the project. It was not that they were the only ones who knew about it. You know, it's just who wants to, you know, it's based on their workload and their current environment for their company. So, you know, people knew about it, and they turned in the one bid. That's all I can say.
So how close is the price to either our budget or what we expected?
So we thought it'd come in around, I think, 4.2, and that estimate wasn't even that recent, was it?
No.
So I think we feel pretty good about this price.
So,
You're saying the budget was 4.2 though?
Yeah,
So
and that
somewhere we're
estimate
gonna be making
was not
up,
updated
okay.
when we put out, you know, that estimate's a little old.
so mobilization, what all does that include?
You want to go to the podium, but it typically would include your bonds, getting equipment out to the site, some of your startup costs. But I'll let Keith speak to that.
Percentage.
Okay, so Keith Rogers with Bear General Contractors.
Thanks, Keith.
Sure. So when you look at the scope of work, and then you look at the bid items we had, I think it was maybe 12 or 15, there are additional items you just don't capture inside that bid. So the mobilization is sort of a catch-all. And when I'm talking about that, when we're going through the scope, there's additional work that is just not delineated, you know, in a unit price. And so that's just a catch-all, and that's what it is. It covers overhead, bonds, payment performance bonds, all of that stuff that there's not typically a line item for.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, I was just curious. All right, any further discussion from the board? I have a motion and I have a second to award the contract to Bear General Contractors. The amount of $4,775,800. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, Mr. Kriegler, number 5, are we going to skip right past that one?
Yeah, I'd like to table that. I'll just speak to it just for a second. So we spoke about this at the budget workshop. This is getting GPS units for the golf carts at the club at Hidden Creek. We think it's a very worthwhile endeavor. It gets us caught up with essentially all the other courses in the area that provide this service on their carts. You know, we put these packets together late Thursday, early Friday, and information was still coming in. And in talking to Trey, he's had some more conversations with the Yamaha product and seems to think that that might be the way to go, and we can save about $800 a month. So we'd like to do a little more digging on this one. They just got a little premature on putting this on here. So let's table this, and hopefully we can get something that's cheaper and still accomplishes what we want to do there. Unfortunately, we may need to bring it back as a board action without a meeting. I don't like to do those, but of course we're not doing any board action until February. We may wait till then, but we depend on how quick we want to get that going. So, but anyway, for tonight, we would like to table this item.
So the Yamaha system has the same capabilities as the PACE?
In terms of controlling the carts, and it provides some additional on the cart side in terms of monitoring battery life and things like that. It didn't have some of the capabilities in terms of like ordering food, like as you're approaching 9, if you want to order, you can't order the food directly, but you can certainly get a message, hey, if you want food, call the turn bar.
I thought that's all PACE did. I didn't realize.
No, you could order the darn food on the thing. So anyway, that was kind of neat, but I don't know if that's a deal breaker. So like I said, we're still comparing those features, and I think the Yamaha product's under $3,000 a month. So that's really what it does the same things. We're probably going to go with that. So.
All right, so we'll move on. Item number 6, the Club at Hidden Creek 2025 proposed budget. Mr. Crigley.
Yeah, so my kind of intention here is not to go over these budgets line by line tonight. They were discussed in the workshop, all three of them. Certainly spent some time on the Holly Navarre one, but I wasn't going to go over these first two in detail. We certainly could take questions. I will say on the Hidden Creek budget, if we approve that budget, we probably need to say pending an accurate GPS contract figure, because we have the original price kind of plugged in there for the other product. So it actually will go down, so that's a good thing.
So unless I missed something, that one is same as presented at the workshop? No change?
That's correct.
I wasn't able to stay till the end of the workshop on the Club at Hidden Creek, but if the Club at Hidden Creek is profitable now, why do we need to continue the spray field revenue? This year, if you look at it, they've made over made $299,000. If you take out the $12,000 we lost this month, that's $287,000, but we've given them $118,000. So they're making over $100,000 a year, over and above the $190,000 that Holly Navarre Water System's giving them to us. We're asking our members to stomach a rate increase in Holly Navarre Water System. I think this is just an area we could cut, and if they do need revenue, or if they run short in the future, they can come to the board and ask us to give them a loan for it.
So I think it's still valid from the aspect of we're not providing what they're asking for. They are taking anything we want to give them, and it's way above and beyond what they need. So I think of it as shared services. I mean, it's a dumping ground for us that they're trying to operate a golf course on, and bring our members money. But as you said, they're making above and beyond that, so there is no drain on the members.
Of $190,000 a year, and $190,000 we're planning on giving them this year. And as I said, they make a profit, so there's no reason for that money to be there, other than
what I just said. I mean,
so why should they? What's the purpose of the $190,000? Do we just need them to have $190,000 higher profit for the year?
No, and they don't get $190,000. They get what the electricity is for the pumps, and any repairs that have to happen. That's the spray field expenses. But they do the labor. Water system buys the parts, because we have to spray that water out. So what's no?
I just personally, I believe that we should get rid of the spray field income from the Club at Hidden Creek. I think that needs to go away. If they need to borrow money in the future, they can come to the board and ask us for it. I just think that's what we should do. I think that we should stop sending them money if it's over, where.
So, okay.
We're talking about.
If we want them to maintain the system, okay, as part of their operation, then we should cut the flow to them to only what they need. That's what they're paying for the system that they need, not the system that we need.
The members of Holly of our water system that elected you to this board spent, around $1.5 million or a little more for a perpetual easement to spray water on that golf course. They also spent some money on infrastructure out there to be able to do it. And that was their perpetual easement. This water system can spray water on that golf course up to its permitted amount, regardless of who owns it. And it's not required to pay a single penny more.
I'm not saying it's required. Nobody ever said it's required.
I think that, I don't think that our members from Holly of our water system should be giving them an additional $190,000 a year that's just purely profit.
And it's not. It's not purely profit.
They made $299,000.
They didn't make $299,000, and so far this year,
we've given
they've spent
$118,000.
I think it's a little more than that.
No, we've given them $118,000 for the spray field. That's what
I was going to say 125, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you took the 118 out of the 299, they still make $70,000 a year profit. Why do they need an additional $190,000 a year profit?
Other than the reason I told you. It's not their system.
So we've gone down this road a number of times since I've been on the board.
And we're using the golf course to generate money for the enterprise.
Anyways, that's my opinion, fellas.
Okay.
And you got mine.
Yeah, we've had this argument, and we've gone down this rabbit hole a number of times in the 2 years I've been on the board. And it's an argument that just goes around in a circle. Darrell makes a great point. Well, we're giving them money for the spray field. And then Don makes a great point. Well, we have to have the spray field, so we have to spend money on the spray field. And then it's a big circle, and it goes round and round. I would like to see us spend as little as possible out there on that spray field. I mean, we pay for the electricity, we pay for any pumps that need to be repaired, and there's other things related to the spray field that we do pay for. I think when I got on the board, we had spent over $300,000 the year before, right, on the club at Hidden Creek, and now it's down to, I thought it was down to 160 at one point, and we agreed to 190 just in case, but we're not even going to hit that number this year. So it's good to see that number going down. Yeah, it's good to see that number going down, and I would be absolutely on board with trimming that figure as low as we possibly could. This is the first year in a while that the course has actually made money, correct?
No, I think the last few years it's
last few years, so it's on a good trajectory, right?
This is certainly its best year.
$109,000, 118, 125, whatever we've given is a big chunk of change, and I certainly don't want to. I'm not here to waste anybody's money. I'm a member of the water system as well, and I have a commercial account as well as a residential account. So that's one reason I got on the board, is to make sure that we're spending money as wisely as possible. Just my opinion, I think absolutely we should revisit this, and we should, we're looking at the budget right now, so I guess we have to make a decision today, right?
Now's the time to revisit.
We're either gonna trim that figure, keep it the same, and do something with it this coming year, or leave it be.
I'm certainly not opposed to revisiting it and looking at what's, like this past year, with attention paid to the system. My understanding, Bill and Clinton can correct me if I'm wrong, some of the big bills were because, the team over there at the time, many years ago, just wasn't paying any attention to the equipment. We had to bring the equipment back up to a good state. And now it's at a good state, and if we keep it there, maybe the requirement is only, 130. I'm not overly opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. I don't think it's correct to just say, okay, it's zero. You know, I understand they're operating the golf course on the spray field, but we're allowing them to operate this golf course on the spray field, and they are making money in the long run for the members. You know, finally. So I think just cutting it off is the wrong answer. Now, after Eggland's online, could be a whole different story. And then it just depends on how do y'all treat that company next year versus this year.
We're giving them $190,000 in this budget. We're also projecting that we're gonna give them $40,000 for GPSs.
No,
It's my understanding.
that's not.
Well, that's what the GPS number in here is, $40,000,
That is the expense,
correct?
and the revenue from that right now is estimated at 26. So if you want to say 14K, go ahead.
Okay, so that's $14,000 for the GPSs, that I assume is just gonna come out of our members here at Holland of our water system. Because they're not
Right.
gonna raise revenues other than to sell some ads in that, which is
Correct.
gonna be negative. It's gonna cost you $14,000. But you're not increasing revenues to cover the $14,000, are you?
And none,
You absolutely are.
yeah.
Where?
Revenues.
Where?
You're gonna have
revenue
more
increases
golfers
every
there.
year.
if
You're
you-
gonna have more golfers.
I guarantee you.
What are your projections for additional golfers?
I'm not a math guy, right? And you are, but.
So,
but that's
nobody
the
showed
truth.
me the math yet. That's what I'm getting
It's just
at.
common sense that if you improve the services that are out there, you can increase your rates, you can get, more rounds.
So are we planning on increasing the rates?
It's an investment in,
They are planning on increasing the revenues. It's right in the budget. They're going from 2,900 this year to 3,150 next year.
How are we increasing
I mean,
rates? Are we increasing rates? Or are we-
Rates increase twice a year.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Rates increase twice a year. And,
I'm against our members. Or, I'm against the spray field revenue. So,
okay.
we'll leave it at that. Don't need to discuss it.
Is there anyone else on the board that wants to do away with the revenue altogether? Or anyone that wants to trim that number?
I'd love to see it trimmed, but also in looking at some of the CIP projects that the golf course has coming up, while they're making a profit, a lot of those earnings that they're banking are gonna have to go toward, replacing the roof and doing other CIP projects out there. So I think we need to take a much closer look at that if we're gonna do it, and I don't think we have all the information that we need to do that tonight. This is just a budget, and we can always amend the budget, later, but I'd like to go with what's already in here.
I'd have to agree with you, Mark. I think it absolutely needs to be revisited, but right now, we don't have the information we need to make that decision.
Was there a motion?
Yeah, there's a motion.
We had a motion and a second to approve the Club Hidden Creek's 2025 budget. Any more discussion?
Has it been seconded?
Yes.
We had a motion and a second,
I
yeah.
didn't remember either.
All right.
I don't think we got a second.
Yeah,
Oh, we didn't get
I
a
think
second?
Mike seconded it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I think he did. There was a.
Peer pressure. I'm making second. All right, so, but definitely we have to revisit that. That needs to be a priority for us. So I've got a motion, and a second to.
Before you call the vote, you got somebody at the podium.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Thiel.
Bill Teal, 2842 PJ Boulevard. This doesn't have anything to do with approving this budget in particular. What I wanted to bring to the board's attention was a request. I know that you had a meeting, a workshop meeting for all three of the budgets that you're going to talk about tonight. And to my understanding, that was open to the membership, okay, to come. I wonder how many members showed up.
None.
Okay, and I would allow that the
Hanson
reason
was
for
here.
that is I'm not sure how,
Hanson was here, sorry, Hanson.
I'm not sure that word got out that it was open to the membership. So I would ask that you figure out some way. I know I'm a member of the, or they have my email address, and I get notifications of when you're closed for the holidays and all that. So I was wondering if the board would consider directing that they put out, when you're going to have these meetings, workshops that are open to the membership, that you send out a similar message so that they know when they are and they're invited. and, the monthly meetings are a given, okay, they're the same day, but these are kind of ad hoc, so I just ask that you consider that.
I think it's a
Yeah,
great
it was
idea.
posted, but only posted in the sense that the monthly meetings are posted. I think what Bill's getting at is additional notification over and above what we would normally.
Yeah,
do.
that
We could
makes,
discuss
that makes a lot of sense.
Because
Yeah,
it's non-recurring.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something,
That's just a request.
I think it's a great idea. Would that be difficult operationally to do that? No?
Yeah, how would you do it?
Well, we have various ways to interact with the members. We have a text
Emails,
message we can send
text.
out. We have a, website or social media. There's multiple ways to do it.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's a great idea. So let's, maybe we'll tackle that next. Let's go ahead and approve the the Club of Hidden Creek 2025 proposed budget. I've got a motion and a second.
Oh, okay, now I'm confused. What was the motion that you made?
To approve the budget as is.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry. I thought it was to cut the 190. Okay,
This is just to approve the budget.
all right.
You have to discuss, you have to make a motion before you discuss.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
We got one opposed. Thank you, Darrell. All right. Moving on, the next budget we have is the municipal engineering.
Yeah, the messy budget was also discussed at the workshop, so I wasn't planning on going over each line item. Phil typically sets this up as a $0 net profit. As you can see, 2024 is projected to come in $524,000, another very successful year. So if anybody has any questions, I know we met with Don before this. He's our liaison.
This one also, there's been no change on any line, correct?
No
Not
change
that I
since
can
the
see.
workshop. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, no change since the workshop.
Make a motion to approve it as, the budget for 2025 for municipal engineering services as presented.
Second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we'll move on with the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right. All right, now we got the next line item is the Holland Navarre Water System 2025 proposed budget.
Yes, so I have a few slides on this one I want to kind of run through before we have a discussion. And I'm certainly not going to recap the presentation from the rate study. The consultant from GovRates was here at the workshop, went through his presentation. I'll just hit some highlights and then go over some budget notes. As you know, his rate study indicated a need for a 12% rate increase. He talked about multiple reasons, meeting coverage requirements, ability to secure debt financing, things like that. But really what's driving this is capital reinvestment needs. He identified that we have around $159 million of assets. If you look at a kind of a life of 30 years, depreciated life of 30 years on those assets, it takes about $5.3 million a year to keep up with that and continue to invest in the system. That all happens on what we call the unrestricted side of things. This would also be called R&M, repair and maintenance type projects. These are not projects that increase the capacity or backbone of our system. Those would be restricted projects. And for 2025, we've identified about $3 million in unrestricted projects. So our budget, so what's included in it? I think we want to be real clear about what this budget has in it. So obviously it has a 12% rate increase based on the recommendations of the rate study. That's what our revenue showing proposed. It also has all the impact fees for 2025 going into the restricted account. That would be a change. I think it's been more than 10 years plus that those have been split 70-30. I have another slide on that. I'm going to talk more about it in a minute. But that's something we've talked about modifying, and we feel this is the time to do that. And then the other thing in this budget, while we're not increasing the impact fees, we are going to charge a separate meter installation fee for new services. This was also a recommendation in the rate study, and those funds would go into the unrestricted account. So if someone just is getting a new meter as part of a new service, they pay a fee. If they need a tap and a meter, they pay a separate fee. But that was previously part of the impact fee. We've separated those two things, and that was obviously one of his recommendations that that's how it should be done. So. Once again, I'm not going to go over all the line items. I do want to state that we're not proposing any increase in operational expenses for 2025. Essentially, those expenses are held flat. I think $12,628,000 is a number. It was pretty much the number in 24, maybe give or take a couple $1,000s. But we are not proposing any increase in those operating expenses. Once again, our unrestricted needs for 2025 is we're looking at about $3 million. And you'll recall from the presentation at the workshop, he's suggesting we prepare for $5 million a year. So we're not there yet, and we won't get there in a year or two, but that's where he would like us to be able to take care of our system long term. You will notice there's some very minor changes in the numbers from the version at the workshop. I know we updated mostly it was the projected end of year items. We did update the wages item was incorrect. We noted that at the workshop. So it changed the bottom line a little bit, but like I said, it's minor changes. So how would we do this rate increase? This is kind of a critical part of it. There's really two broad ways. We could do really let's call it a kind of an across-the-board rate increase. That's where we increase the minimum base charge and the tiered rates, increase everything by 12%. With this scenario, all the customers would receive the same increase, and it's certainly less sensitive to member response. In other words, if someone's going to change their behavior based on an increase, this method would be less sensitive. And if we did the across-the-board, then we would address some of the recommendations on the customer blocks and breaking those out differently. We would address that next year. We do want to talk about an alternative tonight. That's a different rate design that still provides 12% additional revenue. It does involve increasing the base rates more than 12%. But what it does on the water side, if you look at our first residential tiered block, it would be less than 12%. And it would put a higher increase on that highest block. So essentially, the higher users would pay more than a 12% increase. So what it does is it kind of addresses the concern if you believe that some of your maybe lower income members are in that first tier, they would see an increase less than 12%. So we think there may be some benefit to that. And once again, that's on the water side. Sewer is 12% increase in the base and the tiers. It wouldn't follow that same system. I wanted to show, this is kind of an example applying that. This is a good bit of information here. So you'll see the blocks on the left side, the three blocks, the 0 to 3,000 gallons, 3,000 to 9,000, and essentially 9,000 and up are our three blocks. And then you'll see the second column, you'll see the distribution of bills. So about half of the members would be in that first category, about 37% in the middle, just under 15% on that top category. Then you see what the 2024 rates are based on, and what that calculation is the middle of the category. So in that first block there, there'd be someone that uses 1,500 gallons on an average. They currently would be paying $12.75. You look at where that would be in the proposed rates with this tiered structure. Their block rate goes up to $7.50 from $6.01, which is more than 12%. But if you look at their tiered rate, their volumetric charge actually goes down, and their bill does increase to $13.56 for someone in that range. Average of that range ends up being about a 6%, a little bit over 6% rate increase. So you can see it has a lower effect on that first block if that's where your bill lands. Still less, but at less than 12, around 8% in the middle block, and has a higher impact on that third block. course, I will mention this structure would be more sensitive to, to essentially members changing their behavior. If they were in that top block, you'd certainly would think there'd be more incentive to possibly reduce your bill. But it may be going from this average bill of 149 to 181, so you can see their increase there. So commercial, I didn't provide a chart for the commercial. The commercial is the same. We'd be looking at adding some expanded blocks of commercial to match more what the meter size for commercial impact on the system. So it would be increasing the base rates on commercial, and it would be increasing that slowly over time, and then also using the tiered rates on commercial as well. I did want to just touch on expenses real quick. I know we talked about the expense budget number, but just did want to highlight the staff's done a good job controlling our operational expenses. The green number there, budget. So you can see this shows years 22, 23, and 24. Essentially pretty flat. And you'll notice that in terms of the budget number, we're got pretty flat going across, and then actual to budget, which is blue. We've been pretty good at coming in under the budget number each of the 3 years. So once again, just trying to reiterate that this effort's really not about our operational expenses. Real quick, I said I was going to just mention the 70-30 split and why we think it's important to address that now. I'll give an example. So if we were to keep that split, and we were to split the 70 impact fees, 70% restricted, 30% unrestricted, we have a Ameris loan payment to make in 25, about $1,452,000 a year. So if we keep the split, we won't, based on our projected impact fees, we won't even put that much in the restricted account. So we would essentially be having to fund that loan payment and reduce our cash flow. And keep it in mind, in addition to that, our project liabilities on the restricted side are already more than the amount of the loan. We borrowed 19.5, and we've got 20-something, 24, 25 committed that we have to spend part of these projects. So we know we're going to spend down that restricted account before we can build it back up. And then once again, the other side of that is if we remove the split, put these impact fees where you think they need to be, you'd have about $550,000 not going on the unrestricted side. Of course, that has to be made up somewhere. I mentioned the meter installation charge being a part of the impact fees. So we're not recommending any change. The rate consultant did not recommend any change to our impact fees based on our current calculation. They found the calculation to be in line with what our infrastructure is and in line with what other folks are doing. So they didn't make a recommendation to change that. They did, however, recommend that we separate the capacity fee and the meter installation charge. And so here you can see what it would cost for that service. If the service is there, for instance, in a subdivision, 3/4-inch meter, it would cost $575 to have that meter installed. If this is an existing area, maybe the tap's not there, it costs $1,200 for us to go do the tap and set a meter. That would go into the unrestricted side. So that's really kind of the improvement we're recommending for the impact fees. Once again, we touched on this at the November meeting. I'll just say it again. This is a graph of our impact fees we've collected over the last, I think this one goes back roughly 10 years.
14,
And you can see the sewer's on top, water's on the bottom. You can see the trend is definitely in the downward direction on the impact fee side, and we're seeing similar flat/declining sales on the revenue side as well. So certainly it speaks to the demographics of our system getting close to build out. So those are not great financial demographics, but we have to deal with them. Another item I wanted to point out, this is an analysis. This is starting with if you look back to what our rates were in 2016, if we had just indexed our rates in 2016 every year by the amount of the ENR construction cost index, we would have ended up with a total average bill of $90. Well, if you look at what we're proposing for 2025, essentially just gets us to where we really could have been anyways if we had indexing these rates every year. So this is not necessarily the inflation number, but the ENR construction index is more your heavy construction kind of index when you're building projects, which is really what's driving a lot of this anyways. So I just points out that this kind of gets us to where we need to be is kind of the moral of the story here. So once again, I'll just hit on what are the drivers here. Well, the drivers are we've got, flat/declining revenue, and that directly impacts our unrestricted account. I showed the declining flat impact fees. That's on the restricted side, so that doesn't not necessarily relate to the rate increase per se. And then another big driver is we're talking about correcting the 70-30 impact fee split. That's driving this. And then, of course, the need to invest in the system. So those are really the three big things of why we are where we are. So. And then last thing, and then we'll open it up for discussion. I know there's quite lots of questions. Just wanted to show the impact to the average bill. If you're a water-only customer, you'd be looking at about a monthly increase of about under $2. Annually, you'd be looking at about $23. Water and wastewater member, you'd be looking at about $8 monthly, about $94 annual increase. So, this is still, for a service you have to have. This is still, we think, a affordable, economical rate. A lot of the other utilities that you pay for, people pay way more. So we think this is still, very affordable and obviously a necessary service. So that's all I had. And I know there's some comments, discussion.
First of all, before we get into it, any of the directors want to make a motion to have the study put on our website?
Yeah, I make a motion to put this study on our website.
Absolutely. I was hoping so.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that particular item? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Sorry,
If you're out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I didn't make a note when we started. We typically make sure that we have a quorum. I know that Director Campbell's not here, but our votes haven't reflected the actual number. I just want to make sure that we have on the record that we do have a quorum present. We only have one director out. So
thank you, Will.
Our vote is a 6-0 when there was no objection and a 5-1 on the one vote.
All right, thank you, Will. So noted. All right. So I was just going to say, anybody that did not get a chance to come to the workshop and you want the information, it was a company called GovRates. Brian Mance was.
I make a motion we approve the 2025 budget for Holly Navarre Water System as presented.
I'll second that for discussion.
For discussion.
So speaking for me, I don't have a lot of discussion between the workshop and looking at this over the last few weeks. One thing I just want to confirm with Jeff is, well, I guess, we'll get to that in a minute. Very first page, revenue page, I just got a question, page 104, down at the bottom of the 2025 proposed budget, the 17.5, 15.6, and 1.9. If those are supposed to add up, they don't. So I don't understand why not.
I think the difference might be the grant revenue.
No, those bottom three lines. Well,
you're talking about
at least for the other, under 24 approved budget, 24 actual through October, 24 projected through the end of the year, those add up. I don't know why the proposed budget would not add up. It's a nit, but this gives me concern about, why is something being done manually, if that's the reason?
Which numbers again?
He's talking about the three columns at the bottom of the 2025 proposed.
2025.
The 17.5 million, the 15.6, and the 1.9.
Mm-hmm.
If the bottom two are supposed to add up to the 17, they do not.
It's $1 off, and that's due to.
Oh, that's rounding.
That's all I looked at.
Oh,
I just looked at the very last label.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rounding error in cents. We got the cents on it.
From the engineer.
Sorry.
Yeah, $1.
I'm happy if it's only one.
I was like, that's a pretty good catch.
Yep. But, and the other thing that's a nit, throughout here, some of the lines, some of the numbers are all italicized. Why? I mean, speaking for myself, that draws my eye. And if there's no reason for it to be italicized, if you're not trying to call something out, why are they? If they're italicized for a reason, fine. But if they're not, and the biggest area I saw was towards the back. Yeah, on the biggest area was right on the last page, 4 of 4. And there's several lines and numbers italicized. If that's supposed to indicate they've changed, I don't think they all do.
I thought it was a color.
I was kind of thinking we'd be talking about something a little more serious than italicized numbers, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We got other stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
All right.
Something.
The board is still discussing the budget,
Yeah,
but
just a
we'll-
question. I
that's
appreciate
fine.
what you said, Dave, about putting the study online. Can the actual budget be put online? Because we don't know what you're looking at. Like, when you're talking about numbers not adding up and stuff, none of us can see that.
Tell me who you are, sir.
What's that?
Your name.
Wes Siler,
Wes Simon, thank
Yeah.
you.
Address.
2000 Costa Verde Court.
This came up last year. I don't remember the response or resolution.
I don't either.
Personally, I think we should put a proposed budget online whenever we get it.
I'm fine with that as well. I want to be as transparent as possible. That's one of the reasons I got on this board.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Dave. That would, just so we can follow, the conversation. I
Absolutely.
appreciate the presentation Jeff just gave. It's very insightful, and posting that lets us kind of see, especially as you work through it and try to resolve issues. So,
Okay.
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Wes.
So I had a question, Jeff, about the 12% as stated. I like the across the board. You proposed multiple. Which one are we?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be a kind of a board decision. If you really want to provide a structure that provides a little more relief at the lower level, you want to look at the tiered structure. If you want to be more across the board, you can certainly go with that one. In terms of how it's distributed.
I see the intent, but it's not there anymore.
When are we planning on implementing this on January 1?
Yeah.
No.
No?
February 1.
Oh, okay.
We're not January 1. We got February 1.
I just like the simplicity of 12% across the board, personally. Anybody wants to speak to that?
I kind of like it.
I like it because it's simple, but I
I just
don't
like
like it.
simple.
I don't like it because it should penalize the top.
That was the worst thing to me, was that the top was gonna get penalized so bad, like,
Right,
they're
with the
paying
more,
for the water they're using, why should they pay more than somebody who doesn't have, that has septic? I mean,
because our goal is to encourage conservation. So the more water you use, the more water it should cost.
Our permit actually
requires
that we do that.
it's just personal, that's all.
Yeah, personally, I would go with the 3-tier pricing, but I'm still not convinced that the 12% is where we need to be.
I'm got to say, I'm not either. I've gone back over and looked at the numbers and some of the numbers operationally, I think are producing a revenue. I mean, as of at the end of August, we had about $3 million in net revenue. That's before depreciation, but nevertheless, we pushed a lot of those CIP projects off from this year to next year, and so that money should still be there to cover those CIP projects. I understand the aging infrastructure. It's just hard for me to be able to justify a 12% increase, not just this year, but the recommendation of Brian that did this study for us was that we do it 2 years in a row. And I don't see going up 12% this year and then 12% again next year, I think that's too much of an increase, and I think we've got to, I personally am not in favor of that number as an increase.
What would you suggest? we
Yeah,
cut?
I'd like to see it 8 to 10.
What would you suggest we cut? Well, I don't care what you want for a rate increase. I want to know what number in here are you going to cut to make it to where it only has to be 8%?
Well,
Or to make it to where it
they've got to
doesn't
take a
have to
look
be.
at the actual cost of the infrastructure. They've got to look at the insurance costs. We're extremely, the projected, the budgeted insurance costs for 2025 were more than what the actual costs were this year, even though we came in under budget. And I know it was because we didn't have a full staffing, but we never have full staffing. So I think that number.
So you're going to budget for hopefully not having full staff?
No, I'm
gonna
budgeting
budget
for saving money on our insurance, you know, and the actual amount of the rate increase on the insurance was double digits, and, you know, like, I don't know the exact number, but I want to say it was about a 20% increase in insurance. So, I know we're expecting insurance to continue to go up, but, we also talked about shopping to see if there were any other alternatives out there. 9%. Which I still think we need to do.
I agree with you there, but what are we going to cut today to make it to where we don't have to raise rates? To make it to where our budget balance?
Well, it's not balanced, it's balanced to show a profit. I mean, it's showing a profit, it's not balanced.
It's showing us being able to pay for our capital improvements, our capital repairs going forward.
The numbers today are based on a 12% increase. The numbers that we're looking at right now. And if we don't do that, then these are nothing.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we can't do anything.
Right.
What I'm saying is if you're going to say that, hey, we're going to cut revenue up here $1 million, well, I need to know what expenses you're going to cut by $1 million to make this thing balance. So if it balances now with a 12% rate increase, and we want to make the rate increase 8%, then we need to know where that 4% of expenses, what 4% we're going to cut. Or I suppose we could do like we've been doing historically and take money out of the reserve accounts, pay for our operating expenses today, and kick the can a little further down the road.
We're going to run out of money.
That's how we got to 12%.
That's how we got to 12%. That's how we're going to get to 20% next year if we don't raise rates this year.
I thought that graph Jeff set up was pretty good about we would consistently raise rates over the last. I thought that was a good one.
But yeah, I'm okay
The rate
with
study was also predicated on that, I believe. I mean, their results were predicated on
Going forward, right.
After a while, CPI or other regular increases.
Right.
But I mean, if anybody has any ideas on where we can cut money, I'm all for it.
All right, we're going to call Ms. Carmen Reynolds at the podium there.
Yes, Carmen Reynolds, Navarre. I had some ideas, and I've talked to other counties in the state of Florida, and if you all would be willing to listen to my ideas, there's a portion that you all could actually make some money on, because when you put up the slide with the water meters and the tap fees, water meters and tap fees in other communities are way, way, way high. That gives you some flexibility, and you could, because we're not totally built out yet, but every time I open the paper, I find out about a new commercial development that's going in, or a new wetland subdivision that's going in next to Williams Creek with 320 units, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just thinking there is some opportunity there. And on September 20th of 2022, I relayed the following measures to you to consider. in trying to get the budget in hand, and I'll just review them now. Some cost-cutting measures, efficiencies in operations, look at redundancies that are occurring. I noticed that there's almost $200,000 worth of administrative expenses for 2023 that you all have carried. Your wage salary to revenue ratio is 47.1%. That is extremely high compared to an industry standard for utilities of 30 to 35%. Just a review of all kinds of economies and efficiencies. I had suggested maybe an employee suggestion program on cost cutting. The employees are really smart. They may have, we had that in the military, and they would put stuff in a suggestion box. Sometimes it would save $1 million with their ideas. You would have never thought, this lowly Joe Blow put a suggestion in the suggestion box and it saved $1.4 million. Who knows where that might go? I think you all are trying to do the 3-bid thing as much as you can. Reduce fuel, vehicle usage. Is it possible that you could extend your vehicle replacement by 6 months to a year and possibly fudge on that a little bit? Curtail the discounts to the developers. I know that you all stopped the charitable deductions. Thank you very much. What about bonuses? Have those been ceased? Have you looked at scaling down the health care plan? I know in 2016 there was a 17.5% increase. There was a pipe that broke up in Milton, but it was also to identify a platinum health care plan, which was played in the media as being more benevolent than the military gets. Have you thought about a hiring freeze? I know that every year we talk about a COLA, but none of us get, for the most part, the folks that are low income, the young families, they don't necessarily get that. And there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up, but I can't recall it right now. But I hope that that gives you some ideas, because the optics of this, you have to get the community on board and to throw them a little crumbs now and then saying, hey, we're trying to be part of this solution, not we're up here and we're dictating that this has to happen. It's better if you can get some buy-in on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Thank you very much. And that kind of takes me back to where I'm at. We had this one study which I think was a fantastic idea, that we commissioned the study. We'd never done it before. Nobody in the company has ever remembered us doing a rate study like that. And he came up with some very good information. Not only was it more than a rate study, it was a study based on our debt, based on our income, based on a lot of our financials. So he has some very good information in here, but I'm not prepared to make a 12% increase on one study without looking at some of the stuff that we can trim in some of the line items that maybe we can reduce from here and there. I understand, and I totally understand the fact that we're paying for the sins of the past pretty much, that because they haven't done a rate increase every year based on the inflation rate, we're stuck having to catch up, and we've got infrastructure that some of it was built in the 70s and 80s, that a lot of this infrastructure is probably prepared to work for 30 years, and it's been working for 40 years now. And at some point we're going to have, we can't just sit around and wait for it to go bad before we replace it. I mean, we just had to do a pipe. We had to build a pipe just to bypass the main pipe. A temporary pipe that we just spent thousands and thousands of dollars on. So I agree we need to be on top of this. I agree I want to have the reserves there. But we've got to show that we're doing everything we can. I'm confident in the leadership that we have now in the water company. And so far, everything I've seen from Mr. Krigler and Clinton, Phil, and Barbara, everybody is, they've been on top of things, and it's a good thing. We haven't had that in a little while either here at the company. So, but I think in order to swallow 12%, which is, some say, well, maybe that's not enough. Some say it's way too much. In order to stomach that, I want to see more. And I've been going through these numbers ever since the December 6th meeting. It's weighed very heavy on my mind. And I'm not going to make a decision until I'm 100% confident. And right now, I'm not convinced. So that's where I stand. We don't have to approve this budget until the meeting in January, correct?
We're not gonna approve it tonight. Actually, I need to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
But we do need to give staff, we need to direct staff to operate under some budget on January 1st.
We could direct staff to operate under this year's budget from January 1st until the annual meeting, and then to come back with another alternative that doesn't rise to the level of 12% increase.
Do we have any bills that might affect?
I'm just thinking, would we not be able to implement that until March 1st? We need to advertise the rate schedule.
Why are you pulling your motion, Darrell?
Because we don't approve this. This budget doesn't get approved until the annual meeting.
Yeah.
No, but we have in the past approved presenting this at next month.
Yeah, we've approved it.
And
then the new
we come to a
board does
consensus to say
whatever
this
they
is the
do.
one.
That's what we're supposed to.
And doesn't sound like we're gonna do that this year.
Well, we've got 6 members up here. I mean, it takes 4 to approve.
Call the vote, let's see where we're at.
Well, you withdrew the motion.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, call the vote and see how we're gonna operate on January 1.
Well, we either operate under this budget or we operate under this year's budget, you know.
Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, this budget is prepared to go into effect February 1st.
The new rates, we start
The
charging.
new rates in
We
February
start charging
1st.
the members on February 1st, but we would operate off this budget.
Right, so,
January 1st.
but if we do that without increasing the rates, we may be behind a couple of line items. I kind of like what Mark said. Let's see if we can, it's, 21 days? See if we can continue with the 2024 budget from January 1st to the 21st. And then that'll give us a little more time to digest this and maybe see if we can find some line items that we can shrivel down.
I'm ready to vote on this.
I'll make that motion that we direct staff to operate under the 2024 budget from January 1st until the annual meeting. At such time, the budget will be approved for 2025.
Well, if we're saying tonight that this budget wouldn't be approved, we might want to discuss what needs to be done to make it to where we can approve it at the annual meeting.
We do, but we've got to direct staff to operate under a budget from January 1st until the annual meeting. Yeah. So that's what the motion is. We can do another motion to direct staff how we want that budget to look at the annual meeting.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't get a second.
We've got a motion. We just need a second.
I'll second it for discussion. So let's just let it die. The motion was direct them to operate continuing resolution, essentially, in terms I recognize. So, and we're making no decision on this.
Not tonight.
Okay, I heard you. Oh, comment? So future boards, and for us, and for those of you that will be here next year, might be 6 of you. The workshop was where all this should have taken place. And it needs to, so we don't get to this.
Yep.
I failed from the aspect of, I accepted the rate study. And I believe wholeheartedly that we're just kicking it down the road, kicking that can down the road, and someday, somewhere, this places either have to go insolvent or we're really going to piss the members off. It's going to happen. So we can make it happen now or kick it down the road. I'm not willing to kick it down the road. But guys, all guys, next year, I mean, you come to the workshop, be prepared, and if you're not going to accept it, a week later, we need to start that discussion at the workshop. You guys need to start the discussion at the workshop, and that's all I'll say. And we got to do a better job next year. We're putting staff in a bind also, not just.
Well, the staff has put us in a bind, to be quite honest with you. We should have had this, I mean, and I know historically this is the way we've always done it, but at least 1 month prior to this process, where we're at right now, preferably 2, we should have had this 2 months ago.
That's not their fault. Then let's direct them.
That's what I'm saying. We need to direct them, because waiting until this late in the year to get into these discussions is really not good. Because now we're fixing to not vote on this tonight and assume that whenever we get in the annual meeting that it's miraculously gonna be fixed. Which I don't think we're talking about changing a single thing on there tonight. So I looked at, we're gonna go into the annual meeting and not vote to approve the budget, which is really gonna be a problem.
Just to say that you would rather have 8 than 12 is not an excuse not to vote on this budget.
Say again?
It's not an excuse to not vote on this budget by saying, I wish it was 8% and not 12.
No, well,
The numbers.
I mean,
It's not just wishing, it's whether or not we're convinced that much of an increase is needed. And I saw the rate study, and I saw a lot of numbers, thrown at us as far as, $3 million next year toward infrastructure. And I'm not convinced that $3 million is needed for infrastructure. Could it be $2 million? Could it be, $2.5 million? I didn't see any specific projects that money was going to be earmarked to go to. And maybe I missed it in part of that discussion, but I'm just not convinced that a 12% increase in 1 year is needed.
When I listen to Phil talk about people will typically lower their water usage based on their bill, which means we can earn less pretty quickly.
But he doesn't know that. It's an
estimate.
It's a guess.
And the trending, he's saying it was trending down. Impact.
I think
starts are trending lower.
Yeah.
Where's the money come from?
Here's the thing.
Current customers. I mean, they're going to.
We got one rate study that came out the week of the budget workshop.
That we paid for.
We paid for it. Came out the week of the budget workshop. He did a fantastic job in presenting it, right? But this guy doesn't work for the Hauling of our water system.
Nope.
We paid him. He got his money, and I'm sure he did the best job that he could, and his company did the best job that they could. Again, I think it was a great idea that we did this. The fact that nobody's ever done it before is kind of surprising, but all that information was thrown to us very quickly, all at once. We go from a 4.5% increase last year to 12%. To me, that's a pretty big deal. Forgive me if I didn't have all my questions ready for the meeting on the 6th, but it was a really great discussion on the 6th. We talked about maybe having the staff come up with a 8% or 10%, and to me, the issue is we can't just go off we need ourselves to figure out exactly how much money we need to increase. We need to do a study on the infrastructure and what needs to be replaced in the next, few years. When's the last time we've done that? Where we looked at all the infrastructure and said, this is 40 years old. This needs to be replaced.
I thought you spoke to that with the
Well, we're
$3
certainly
million
planning to
in
do that for the
projects.
wastewater plant this year. We don't have.
Right, but we don't have anything like that, right? So, we can't get all that done in a month either,
No.
right? So, we're in a conundrum now that we got all this information thrown to us at the very end of the year. Everybody, except for, you know, the members, wants the 12% increase. And I just say, if we're gonna do that, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. But I'm not convinced yet. I'm not convinced. I can look at the numbers, but I think if we're gonna push through this 12%, then we're gonna have to cut some more fat. And there's some more fat that we can cut. And we've already talked about it. You know, the big thing is employee insurance. There's other things as well. So I think I'm a member. I pay my water bill as well. It's gonna hurt me. And it's not something that I want to do. I didn't ask for this. But we're here, and our job as a board is to do what's best for the company and make sure it's in the best financial shape possible.
Well, it's not good for the company to not have the reserves we need if something goes south, because
I
then we're
understand
taking
that.
out a lot of our costing our members even more.
Another loan.
That's why we have the averages that he was talking about in the study. That's my.
And there's been a lot of mistakes made in the past, so.
And that's the funny thing about it. You're right. It may not be $2 million or $3 million for the next, 10 years. You may only have 1 to 2 years, or $2 million or $3 million or $1 million. But the way that also works is you could get to a year and it's going to be $15 million, $20 million that you have to spend. And at that point, if you have no cash in the bank, you're not going to be able to get financing easily. The only place you're going to get that money from is your members. It's going to be kind of hard.
I'm also not convinced that impact fees should not be increased at all.
That's
We're
absolutely one thing we
part of
should
the
look at.
Well, I think they
justification
should be.
for the.
I think they should be.
Part of the justification for the rate increase is our increasing debt service obligations. But a lot of that debt service is due to, increasing capacity. And so that should come from the impact, the restricted side, not the unrestricted side. So, increasing the impact fees, would offset some of that increase in debt service that we're facing. So, I'm not saying I want us to run out of money. I don't want that to happen. I agree we need to have reserves, but I'm not convinced that that the rate increase should just be on the operational side, the existing customers. If we're going to raise rates on existing customers, we need to be looking at the impact fees. And I know our impact fee revenue has been declining, but there's still a lot of commercial property on 98 and 87 that's going to get developed with commercial businesses and higher density residential, which carries, impact fees. So that I don't think our impact fees are going to go away. They're just going to change from being single-family houses to apartment buildings, condominiums, commercial development.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you.
They have to come up with a whole new formula then.
Well, one challenge is they've got to be legally defensible. These things get challenged all over the state. Our consultant understands that, and there's different ways to calculate it, but he said the method he used gave them a number that's similar to what we already charge, so he couldn't recommend a much higher impact fee, and it be, in his words, that defensible. So we just have to make sure we're still able to do that. If we just raise it out of the blue, certainly there's going to be backlash to that. We can't back it up. So.
Well, I know our impact fees are higher than some other areas, but lower than a lot of other areas too. So, if our impact fees are lower than other comparable areas, and we don't, how would that be hard to defend raising them?
The other thing to keep in mind is if we if we get rid of the 70-30 split, the increased impact fees would just go on the restricted side, so it wouldn't change your need for a rate increase. We make that change.
Right. Well, but
It just helps us out with restricted projects.
Right.
Passive projects.
I don't want to sidestep the discussion that's going, but I do want to make a comment that what you're talking about when you use the term impact fee is more appropriately a connection fee. It's not an impact fee in the sense of an impact fee that is put in place by the municipal government based on the amount of development. It's strictly a connection fee for the service that is being provided. So I just want to put that out when the comment was made. It does have to be legally defensible, and it absolutely does, but again, it's a connection fee for the water and sewer that you provide, not a general impact fee in that sense as municipal governments discuss.
Thank you, Will. All right, so we've got a motion to continue the 2024 budget from January 1st to January 21st until the annual meeting. And we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Me? Nay.
Two opposed, 4.
4-2.
4-2. All right. And Darrell, we talked briefly when Mr. Seiler was up there about move to put the proposed budget online. Did you want to go ahead and make a motion, or?
That passed. There was a motion, a second, and a vote, as far as I recall.
For the proposed budget?
The motion to post the, I'm sorry.
That was a rate study.
My apologies. That was the rate study.
I make a motion to put the proposed budget for 2025 online.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Martin Deckham, 9050 Sunset Drive. Merely a point about the math, that a 12% increase in successive years is a almost 25.5% increase in total.
Thank you. All right, let's move on down to item number.
Whoa.
Nope.
One more item.
Are we tasking staff to do anything, or the 6 of us and 7 if Joe comes back, are we gonna go through the rate study and all these numbers? I mean, who's doing what to come up with a different budget? My impression right now is this budget's not gonna pass. So how do we get to one that's gonna pass? I don't think we've told them. If you guys told them, I've been sleeping, sorry.
No, we didn't vote on this budget.
So we can't just go pass. I understand we don't like it. I understand we don't like it, but we gotta tell them what we just can't go past until we tell them what we want.
We have to tell them what to change. We have to tell them what to change.
Well, we talked about at the budget workshop, coming back with some scenarios with an 8% increase or a 10% increase, or I don't remember what the numbers were.
Yeah.
When that guy, the
Something
government
less
guy
than
was
12.
here, he showed you right then what 8% was. He showed you.
I did go
Right
back and
there.
watch the video. There was kind of conflicting direction on what to come up with. Some folks said, I'm good with it. Some folks said,
We never gave
with
a
that.
specific
But it didn't really
direction.
seem clear, but
Right.
I can speak to the, just in terms of the cost difference or the difference in revenue. If we're talking about an 8%, you'd essentially be $430,000 short next year. If we kept all those, if we don't make any other changes. So we have that information. We don't have a full 10% budget. We did look at the impacts of that. So, but what I was going to ask is there an interest in having yet another workshop? I hate to add a workshop, but I do not want to come to the meeting on the 21st without, something that.
I think a workshop would be great, but David's point, we need some information before the workshop so we can be a little better prepared at the workshop to discuss alternatives. And I'm gone next week.
Right, it's not happening before the holiday.
Okay, then,
Not happening.
then disregard that last statement.
Yeah.
Well, we need some information beforehand, before that workshop, to give us an idea of what are the possibilities, or what's the issues, and we can come better prepared than to just say, this is just not acceptable. You know, certainly tonight, I mean, we could sit here for hours and go over it like it's a workshop, but I don't think it would be very productive without getting some information from staff on what some of the changes would drive and where it leaves us. But we need that before that night.
I agree with that statement.
Okay.
I'm on board with that, Jeff. I'm on board with that for sure. I think we do need to hash it out a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it 100%. I just want to be convinced that that's the right thing to do. Ms. Reynolds?
Yes, Carmen Reynolds, Navarre. Would it be possible to consider some in-house training for employees to enable them to acquire skills that right now are farmed out to subcontractors? Pick certain areas that aren't entirely super complex. That might shave off some dollars. You could do it in-house rather than subcontracting it out. That's just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. All right. So, Jeff, you see if we can put together a date that's convenient for everyone.
Yeah, I think we would need to, after, starting with the week of the 6th, something in there. There's 2 weeks when we get back after, the week after New Year's, there's essentially 2 weeks. And there's a meeting on the 21st, 20th, a holiday. We've got the election going on, so I hate to do it too close to the election board meeting.
Well, for myself, I would not be surprised if we could take up 2 meetings doing this. So I would be all in favor of the week of New Year's, or wherever the first week, do one, and just expect we might have to do another one the following week, because we may not come to an agreement. Depends on what information we can get when. So I wouldn't delay it. That's all I'm saying.
hearing week of the 6th is what I'm hearing.
Let's do the first one and see where we're standing.
I agree.
And
obviously it's open to the public.
And I personally would just like to see what infrastructure projects is this gonna go toward, whatever increase we do.
Right.
Because operationally, it's not for operations, it's for the aging infrastructure.
Right, well, so let's just, for some food for thought, let's just touch on the unrestricted real quick. So, you mentioned what's kind of different or new. A lot of the items on the unrestricted are recurring items that we fund every year. An example would be like the lift station repairs improvements. We typically fund that in the neighborhood of $250. We typically spend that money. Some of these others sometimes do not get spent, but things can happen. As far as what's new, we've been pouring a lot of money into the generator at the wastewater treatment plant. That's a high dollar item. I think we had $500,000 on that one. That was new. If you recall, back in June, we had that failure at the plant of that pipeline, and we made a temporary repair. But we need to make a permanent repair for that. We're expecting about $300,000 for that. That's $800,000 right there, and that's about the difference between the two, from the 24 number and the 25 number. Like I said, we've been putting money into that generator. I swear every time we get that generator worked on, it's over $10,000. We've put a lot of money into that thing. It's at the end of its life, so we think it needs to be done. Is there leeway there? Maybe. We think it's a risk if we don't do it. We have to make the repair to the force main. We got to do that. We've got a temporary above ground pipe sitting there. We've got essentially a failing pipe that we know is failing. So we got to do that one. So it's that kind of stuff. I mean, we want to do a workshop, we can go through each one of these, but that's essentially the main difference. We did have a little carryover in trucks. I believe 2 trucks did not come in this year. Put that amount on the 2025 number. So you'll see that went from 275 to 361. So you add those three up, and that's really your difference between the 24 numbers.
As far as the trucks go, we had that budgeted for last year, for this year, right?
That's
So
correct.
that money
Those two just didn't come
rolled
in.
over, right?
So we
Gotcha.
increased the 25 number to include the two we did not buy.
Well, I guess some of the bigger numbers that I'm looking at are, and this is the draft unrestricted capital improvement budget. The budget for 2024 for general lift station repairs was $274,000, but the 2025 need, or total need for 25 is $1.3 billion.
No,
That's the 5 years.
That's the
That's
5
the,
years.
you gotta look in that green column, it's 260, so that was kind of flat. That brownish column just totals everything, that's not a 25 budget
Okay.
number. So yeah, so make sure you're looking at the green column.
You're right, that's the total.
Yeah, because it totals up to 9 million, that's not the ask.
Well, I think between now and the workshop, we can dissect this a little bit more, have questions, and hopefully answers ready. But I'm prepared to do another workshop. Do we need to come up with a date tonight, or can we?
I'm available that whole week as
Okay.
far as I know.
I just have to look at my work calendar.
So, one of the benefits of being retired.
There's a lot of benefits for being retired.
I mean,
I'm not there yet.
just without checking everyone's schedule, I mean, the 7th or the 9th is probably the most likely. Mondays and Fridays don't seem to work well.
So what day?
7th or the 9th.
Doesn't matter.
is the Northwest Florida delegation meeting at St. Sylvester's
In the evening, or?
evening. Right.
I mean, the 7th works for me, but we
Seventh
can.
works for me, what time?
What day is it?
It's
It's
a
a Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that.
At what time?
It's the first Tuesday in January.
6 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
I prefer 5.
5 p.m. it is.
5 works for me.
Later, right, Rob?
Is that good with everybody?
That's good with
January
me.
7th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Should be good.
I've got it down, yep.
Should be fine. I'll talk to my boss.
Everybody out there get that if you wanna come?
He's a jerk.
And we'll make sure we post it this time.
That's why I'm gonna do it.
Thank you, Bill. We posted it last time, but we'll make sure to reach out to you.
There you go, there you go, hand to me.
I'll be directing staff, anything else before that meeting?
And making it till you're done, right, you're gonna put a bunch of hungry dogs in the area and it's gonna need to be done, or you're gonna schedule another one?
I don't want to schedule another one. I think we get it done on the
I
7th.
hope so. I thought we were
What I
gonna do
think
it
you
tonight,
would
honestly.
like you to avoid is not having the 21st get unsettled, it ought to come to the 21st.
Oh, exactly, yeah. I
See
think,
an up, down,
yeah,
vote
we
would
all
be
need to be
nice
on the same
tonight.
page. All right. All right. Anything else before we move to, number 9, reserve funding?
Any other direction that we need to give?
Any other direction for the staff?
From me.
Mark, what's some of this information you need from staff before we
Yeah.
I'd just like to see
all the CIP funding?
what a budget would look like at a lower increase
Lower
level.
percentage?
Yeah, lower percentage, that's,
I don't think it was the project, it was
Obviously,
the
1%
need for cash.
Yeah.
It was the need for cash.
So just take $104,000.
That was my takeaway from all of this, was the need for more cash. We spent a absolute ton of it this last year, and we're gonna spend a ton more, and that's the gist of it.
A whole lot more this year.
And how do you get it in a self-funded organization? That's how you get it. Unfortunately, the grants aren't a-flowing.
All right. Well, as we think of things going into that meeting that we need, I'm sure we'll get with Jeff and he'll be glad to have the information ready for us. All right, 2025 reserve funding, Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, so we initially came up with a reserve last year as part of the budget process. We are essentially updating that memo. It was a memo to the board last year. This year we're making it a little bit more formal. The prior policy mentioned a dollar value, which really in the long term doesn't make sense. It needs to be something we can go off every year and say we're still in compliance. So Barbara's reworked this, and she gives the formula. She gives an example of what it would be for 2025 based on current numbers, which of course those may or may not change. But we think this is a better way to do it. It's the 2025 reserve number doesn't change that much, still in that $1.5 million range. Hope we don't have problems hitting it. You know, certainly this policy speaks to that. If we do, we come back to the board. But this is just, we think this is a better way to track it, better way to do it annually, so we don't have to come back to every year with the amount. We just follow the policy that the board approves.
All right. So instead of a dollar amount, we just have, it's equal to 45 days.
45 days of the annual budgeted gross operating expenses. We debated that formula and feel good about it.
So no matter how prices go, we'll still have $45 worth of emergency
45 days, yeah.
funding in the bank.
Which the study showed we won't have if we drop below 12%.
We have to. We have to.
Yeah, won't that be counterproductive if we approve a 45-day reserve budget, but yet we don't have a budget that will get us there?
Because the budget he showed,
Doesn't
when
make
we
any
asked
sense.
him to show us the numbers, below 12, we looked at 10%, 8%, and we were looking
They were
at
25
27,
days.
38 days operating.
It doesn't make any sense.
You need to speak up for me.
When we looked at the numbers, our reserve would drop to 27 and 38 days without the 12% increase, is what he showed in the study. So if we're going to have a 45-day requirement for our reserves, we're not going to be able to meet that without hitting the 12% increase.
That's why I brought up everything was based on these numbers right here, and we are not doing most of these things, so I'm not sure what we're doing. Anyways, that's what I got.
Robert, we have the reserve amount in the bank right now for that fund, correct?
For now.
For now. And we'll have it until the 21st of January.
That's not guaranteed.
That's not guaranteed, but we have it for now.
We have it for now.
Okay. So the staff recommendation is that we approve the modified version of the reserve policy, which makes 100% sense to me. I'm on board. If anybody wants to make a motion?
Yeah, I move we approve the updated operating finance reserve as proposed, as written.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm looking at it says that based on the 2025 budget, it would be 1.5 million, is that correct?
The reserve would be 1.5.
1.5 million, and that is in our cash account, or is it in our cash and our operating, or how is that?
That's in our cash account, which is our operating.
Yeah.
Which we, right now, as of 10/31, had 105,670 in there.
No,
Is
it's
that
the two accounts.
There's two accounts.
Yes, Centennial plus.
Centennial and the Ameris operating.
Ameris operating, well, then that comes to 818 or 819, so we're well under that.
Yeah, it's, the policy talks about on an average, though.
On an average, 3-month average.
3-month average. Let's go back.
But I mean, just looking at where we are right now compared to what we're approving, we're substantially lower than what we're wanting to get to.
We're substantially lower than where we want to get to. I agree with that statement.
Do we need 45 days of operation?
So the rate study wanted way more. He was talking about 3 months and longer. He even was talking about some Some utilities carry a year, so we're not gonna get there right now. That's not even a
No.
discussion, but 45 is on the low end of the recommendations for HWWA.
I mean, it's real nice whenever you can just write a check for whatever you have to spend it on, and then worry about getting fined.
Right.
And we've done that a few times.
Well, no. Well, I'm not opposed to the reserve proposal that was presented to us. I'm just saying we're not anywhere close to meeting this right now.
Have to set goals.
That's why I would vote on it.
But the 3-month average, we were at that number,
The 3
correct?
months average, yes.
Okay. Oh,
You
there
have
you
to
go.
keep in mind your cash changes every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the modified version of the reserve policy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right. Next item, employee pay bands.
Yes, so we've identified pay bands for our positions. This is something that's been a topic for a while. I believe we were somewhat directed to do it last year. It's come up again. So we have come up with something for the board's discussion. And it's based on the 2024 HWWA compensation survey. It does take into account size of the utility as well as region. So it's not just trying to compare it to, largest utility in a large city. It's supposed to be comparing as much as it can, apples to apples, as much as it can.
So what is the geographical area that?
I believe it's the southeast.
Can we find out for sure?
What states?
Can we find out for sure?
This is what I was told. It was southeast and it was size of utilities.
Yeah.
A couple of different sizes and then regions.
I'd
Could
just
be
like to
East
know,
Coast.
I'd just like to
I'll
know
provide that.
which study it was.
Yeah, I was told southeast. I'll confirm that.
Now, these pay bands, whenever they're talking about compensation, are they looking at total compensation or just salary?
Those would be just salary.
Just salary, okay.
And it'd be most helpful with hiring, and it would also help with when we're looking at some of these cost of living adjustments and things like that. So we think there's some benefit to them. We've gotten by without them for a while, but
We haven't had anything like this before at the company, correct?
No.
All right.
Kinda.
Well, it's a start.
Well, we did have these before, didn't we?
maybe a version maybe.
Yeah. We've had,
See
well, we,
something like this.
whenever we right-sized everybody's salaries down here about 10 years ago, this is what we were using, I believe, wasn't it? Or something very similar to it. When HR decided that they were gonna come up with the correct salaries for everybody. You remember that?
All right.
I do.
All right, staff's recommending we approve the pay bands for use. And I would look through myself, it seems very reasonable.
How do we use this information in setting a salary? I mean, a lot of it is based on how much experience a person
It's
has.
just a guide. I mean, it gives a range.
Right.
It's going to be useful on the low end with hiring as a gauge, but you're right. It's every hiring situation is different. It's based on that resume. But it just gives us something to point to say this is not out of whack with what other folks in our industry are doing.
How do our current employees fit in here? Anybody, too many people way out of the bucket, or?
Very, very few.
Very few, so it'd be
There's
manageable.
a handful, but most everybody's with it.
All right, do we have a motion?
We did?
No, do we? That's what I was asking, if we do have a motion
Oh.
Would be.
to approve the pay bands for use in hiring. And
I would be ready to, as soon as I learn what, the specific book we're talking about, the specific region. I wanna know some more details on this
Okay.
bill before I vote on it.
all right. So Jeff, we can table that till the next meeting, right? Get some more information.
I don't see any reason why not.
Perfect.
And it also says that the pay bands would be used in the application of COLA adjustments. So how would that be used? Somebody's at the top end of their
If
pay
they're
band?
over, if they're outside it, the board would need to discuss whether they want to apply that to someone that's outside the range.
So that would be an individual exception? We'd have to have a personnel meeting or something in that instance?
Yeah, or the board could say it doesn't apply to COLA. I mean, it'd be however y'all want to do it. That'd be part of why we'd be doing this.
Either individually or it's just a blanket policy.
Yeah.
We'd have to decide.
Yeah, they're outside of it.
Yeah.
Above it.
It's a blanket policy, either up or down. It shouldn't be based on individuals.
Which brings us to our next item, number 11, is the cost of living adjustments. Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, so this is currently in our budget. We based it on the metric that Social Security uses. It's the CPI/W. They've already sent out something that their COLA is 2.5% for 2025. We were recommending that as part of the budget, which was tabled earlier, so I don't see how this could be approved necessarily. But and then we were also, going to suggest that the board determine if employees outside the pay bands would receive the COLA or not, but we didn't. We tabled that as well. So I'm not sure there's an appetite to vote on this based on this part of the budget.
But the current budget has these numbers
It has it
incorporated?
in there. Yeah, I mean, the thing I would add is that the thing to keep in mind here is we still have a lot of folks on the low end of the pay scale. New people start around $17 an hour. We know that doesn't go far these days, so we think it's, really helps them.
Right. So recommend we push this off until the 21st of January as well?
Well, we won't be conducting any business on the 21st.
We approving a
Except for
budget.
approving the budget.
It's kind of part of the budget.
It's tied to the budget.
It's in the budget.
This is in the budget.
It's in the budget, so.
So
Okay.
that motion on the 21st
Just needs to be very
would be,
clear about what's included.
would be not just for a budget approval, but also to whether or not to approve the COLA.
And probably the rate schedule too,
Right.
which we're about to talk about.
Okay.
All right. So again, the next item is the rate schedule,
I don't see how we can
which we're
approve
going to
that
have to
either.
push off as well. Engineering, Mr. Phillips, you got anything?
Sure. We continue to have I&I problems. They've calmed down a little bit, but they're still way higher than we would like to see, and you can see 2024 is unfortunately back to, like a 2021 level from the rainfall we're seeing. We do have a couple of substantial problem areas for one reason or another that Mark is addressing. Water loss is good, and I will state, unless Clinton wants to correct me, that I believe that he and Donna are convinced that we are getting very close to accurate information out of Edmonds at this point in time, so that the 6.9% that you see there is a real number this month. Do you agree with that?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. We continue to have problems pulling some customer type data from Edmonds, but Donna's convinced at least the current data appears to be accurate. Some of the past data is not accurate and probably never will be, but going forward, she thinks it is. So anyway, that's all I've got. Y'all have already covered the capital improvements, which is a lot of what's going on around here, so unless somebody has questions about those.
All right. So we've got a workshop on January 7th at 5 p.m. We encourage all the members who are interested to please show up. And
Did we say where? Here in the
it'll be
boardroom?
here.
I may have just
Yeah.
decided.
Here.
Yep.
How about
I gotta tell Ryan to get with that guy.
And before we adjourn, anyone else, any member have anything to say to address the board? Anybody? All right, Ms. Reynolds.
Carmen Reynolds, Navarre. Just wanted to echo Mr. Krigler. We dodged a bullet on that wellfield protection area, the plan to bastardize that. And we have to be cognizant of the new location selected in the event that it's up gradient of the WPA. Number two, I got a call today on my way to the meeting from a citizen. I knew nothing about this, but I just wanted to relay it to you all. She said that she got a letter in the mail on December the 10th from the water system telling her that there was going to be an election and that she should request her absentee ballot by December the 4th. So I don't know what occurred, but it may have been more than a few people. So she said she got a letter on the 10th, and that the cutoff was the 4th, so she missed that. And I can have her get a hold of you all if you would like. Number three, and lastly, I was reviewing your master meter policy for private developments dated April 18th, 2023, and I wondered, does that mean that, I'm trying to save us money here, does that mean that with lift stations in private HOAs, we don't have, the water system doesn't have to service those, or what's the interpretation of that?
You're talking about a master meter?
It says master meter policy for private developments where the water system, the way I read the paragraph, it didn't have an obligation to service them, but I wondered, did that extend to lift stations?
Everything downstream of that would be private.
Okay.
They pay to have the meter installed, but downstream of that would all be private.
Including the
Water
lift
and sewer
stations.
typically.
Okay, so then my question becomes, Parker's Landing, 2 lift station pump replacements for $45,675.89. That's an HOA over there, but how did?
Just because it's an HOA doesn't mean it's not our station. That's our station.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So the existence of an HOA doesn't mean the HOA owns a lift station.
Okay, so it's case dependent. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms.
And I
Reynolds.
assume you were talking about the annual letter to our members that we mail out. Everywhere I've seen it said December 20th. I'll double check it though. I assume you're talking about the deadline.
The cutoff date for requesting you to mail them one was the 4th.
Yeah. Oh, that's what she's talking about.
Still come in and pick it up.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand what she was talking about.
I think she did.
Okay.
Just
So
got
then
the
there's
letter
probably
late.
no issue then. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I was
Navarre.
concerned.
USPS, there you go.
Well,
I got you.
it's that date was the last day that we would mail them one.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
She still should have gotten that letter
Pick one up
beforehand, right?
the day of the 20th and fill it out and set something.
Okay.
But not everyone is as noble as you are. She's an older widow that is in a lot of pain. She called me.
Yeah. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.